Hello everybody, welcome to Snyder's Inc. I hope you're all having a good day and a good evening, I guess, by when this comes out. So today we got more Mr. Ballin for you. Mr. Ballin tells more stories that we like to hear. This one is Special Forces attacked by unidentified creature. I can't say the actual title, the something giant. I'm not even going to attempt to say that because I'm not going to. I will get it clearly wrong. But I think we need to get right into this. Are you guys ready? Of course you're ready. Let's go.
After 3 years of intense military training, I had become a Navy SEAL, joined my first SEAL team, which was SEAL Team 2 in Virginia, and I had joined my platoon, my 25-man platoon. We had gone through all this additional training at the team to prepare for deployment, and here I was 3 years to the day, almost exactly, from when I went to boot camp, getting ready to deploy as a Navy SEAL to Afghanistan. But none of that training would prepare me for how intense my first couple of weeks in Afghanistan would be. So the flight to Afghanistan is pretty routine until you enter Afghanistan airspace, when your pilots let you know, hey, you've entered Afghanistan airspace. They turn the lights to red in the inside of the plane, and they get ready to descend very rapidly into the base where we would be landing. You know, we can't afford to be in the air for any longer than we have to be because there's a risk of getting shot. So there's a super steep descent, and then
I wonder why he's telling us this part. Okay.
They tell you to stay away from the windows, right? So you're avoiding the windows in case you get shot at. And I remember thinking, like, wow, like, this is really it. We're here. We're in a war zone. Like, we're nosediving into bases to avoid getting shot at. Like, it was intense. And I'm in my 20s. Like, it was just kind of cool. Then the ramp opened. The back of the plane opened, and we all got out. And we're inside of this very well fortified base. You know, we're safe in here. And immediately I was struck by the just stunning beauty of the landscape. And I remember looking out at all these snow-covered mountains. And I remember thinking, like, how is this a war zone? This is one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. I don't think I really appreciated just how foreign of a place Afghanistan is relative to where I come from. We get out to our site, and that night they wanted to go, they being the team that we were relieving, they wanted us to go on an operation. We were going to be up in the mountains. And I remember distinctly them talking about the cave systems that were in these mountains. And I remember thinking, like, how creepy that was, that we would be up on these mountains, walking around. It's so isolated, it's so foreign, and there could be, like, people hiding in caves that we could accidentally fall into one of their caves. Like, it really, really creeped me out. And so I was talking about how creepy these caves were, and the interpreter was like, you know, what's really creepy is back in 2002, there was this fairly well documented case of another special operations unit, the Army Green Berets, coming in contact with a creature in a cave. And they actually got into a battle with it. And they lost one of their soldiers to this creature. And it was fairly well documented, but then it was quickly kind of silenced. I mean, certainly the story was interesting, but I didn't really believe it. Maybe it was some animal, maybe it was some person, whatever it was, there was some explanation to it. It wasn't until now that I actually started exploring different strange occurrences and strange events, and I looked and found some testimony from one of the soldiers that came forward anonymously, who was a part of this operation where they came in contact with this creature in Kandahar. And what struck me about his testimony...
Kandahar. That's how you say it, Kandahar.
...is it sounds authentic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell
the story of the Kandahar Giant.
That soldier's story, and I'm going to tell the other kind of corroborating witness stories as well to try to give you a picture of what happened in Kandahar in 2002, and you can be the judge if you think this is fact or fiction. But before we get into today's story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you come to the right place, because that's what my channel is all about, and I upload 3 to 4 times a week. So if that interests you, I would encourage you to please gently ravage the like button and then subscribe to my channel and turn on all post notifications so you don't miss any of those 3 to 4 weekly uploads. All right, guys, let's get into the story. In 2002, an Army infantry unit just vanished. They were on patrol in the Kandahar mountain range in Afghanistan, and they stopped using the radios. They stopped calling in. No one knew what was going on. They didn't call in a TIC, which stands for Troops in Contact. Basically, any military unit, if you're out on an operation and you start getting shot at, you radio in to your higher command, hey, troops in contact, or TIC, which signals to them you need to get aircraft on standby, you need to get ready to send reinforcements, they need to be ready to support you. But they only do that if you signal that you're in a TIC. And it's, a lot of people, if anything, will call it in too early. You know, units are known to call it in almost prematurely sometimes. And so the idea that a unit would vanish without calling in a TIC or any sort of communication about any gunfight or any ambush or anything, it's a little bit strange. And so they disappear. The Army decides that in order to find them, because this is obviously a really big deal, they would get their most elite unit, so the Army Green Berets, that's their very elite special forces, they would send them out to find this missing unit. And so one soldier that was a part of that elite special forces detachment, who just goes by Mr. K, he would come forward years later and tell the story of what happened once they were tasked with this mission.
Okay, so I have a feeling this creature and the group that's missing are connected. I don't know if they know that. I don't think it's probably confirmed. I'm just saying that's probably what happened.
So they leave via helicopters and they fly out to the Kandahar mountain range about 4 clicks, so 4 kilometers about, from where they believed was this infantry unit's last known location. And so they land and they start doing this fairly methodical search through the mountainside. They knew that they were in enemy territory, and at any time they could get into a gunfight, they could be ambushed. There's all these cave systems all over these mountains. And so it's slow moving to begin with. Plus, they're looking for this lost infantry unit. So it's just a very slow movement through the mountains. And so over the first few days, nothing really happened. They didn't come in contact with the enemy. They didn't see any sign of this missing infantry unit. They just walked along the mountains carrying a bunch of gear, and that was it. At some point, they noticed a little bit farther ahead that there was this distinct pathway leading up the mountain and kind of around the corner. And it looked like a goat trail. There were lots of goats that would run around the mountainside, and it looked like a very well-developed goat trail. And they decided, let's just go up there. If nothing else, we can go up onto wherever this leads us and maybe look down across the other side of the mountain and see if we can see anything. And so the team starts making their way up this goat trail, and as soon as they start making their way up, they start noticing that there are little pieces of American military equipment on the ground.
So pretty much they're going up this trail and finding pieces of military equipment. AKA, they probably got ambushed up this goddamn when they were going up this hill, or they got dragged up this hill.
There are pieces of radios, like whip antennas and housing of the actual radio itself. They found military-style backpacks as well, and they started finding pieces of uniforms that belonged to the missing infantry unit. They knew based on the patches that were on these uniforms. So as they're walking up this trail of broken equipment and uniforms, they start seeing some bone on the ground. They didn't know if it was human bone or what. They start seeing broken bones scattered on their way up to this kind of plateau. And so now the Special Forces team, I mean, they're incredibly well trained. I mean, I'm not just being biased here. I mean, the Army Green Berets, the Army Special Forces, they're very similar to the Navy SEAL teams, which I was a part of. 2 different units, no doubt, but very much peers. And the level of training you get in handling situations like this one, now granted this one's pretty unique, you're so well trained that when things start getting dangerous, it's like your training just kicks in, and everybody's does. And so I would imagine that when they saw this, what they were thinking is this was an ambush. This infantry unit was ambushed, and we're probably coming up on the ambush site. And so they're,
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, they'd go into the assumption, yeah, these guys just got jumped, these guys just got ambushed, these guys are being taken out, so we got guns drawn. That makes a lot of sense why they would think that, especially if they're an enemy, like they're coming in on enemies. I can see why they think that.
Taking defensive positions, and they're moving slowly and very tactically up this mountain, and they're keeping their weapons pointed at the leading edge on their way up to the top of this mountain. They get to this plateau. It's like a flat section of the mountain, right? It's like a steep mountain, and there's like this little like shelf almost. and there's more equipment scattered and more bones scattered across it, and there's all these cave entrances right in front of them. It's as if they were intentionally placed so that they fed out onto this shelf. And so they start moving towards the mouth of the caves, and they realize, without even getting very close, that even though the mouth of these caves are pretty large and everybody could go into the cave, there is a steep drop-off. Like, you'd walk in and then it just goes straight down, and someone kind of peered over the edge and couldn't see how far it went down, and they decided that it was just too dangerous to go in there, because clearly something happened here where American lives were lost, based on the tattered uniforms and equipment. And so let's just pull back and take up defensive positions looking at the...
I like that thought process. They're like, okay, this has a drop off. Let's not go down this because this is good. Even if we all went into different ones, we could all end up in trouble. So let's not do that. Let's instead go stay defensive in case, because something happened here where our guys start taken out. So we should stay guard because easily we could be targets. Whatever's going on here.
The entrance to all of these cave entrances. And so as leadership goes down, kind of out of the fatal funnels, if you will, outside of these caves, Mr. K, who's the guy who's told us this whole story, he said he's looking at one of the entrances to the caves, and he sees a flash of movement inside of the cave. And he looks over at it. He doesn't have time to react to it or anything. And all of a sudden, a spear comes flying out of the cave. This big, massive lance comes flying out, and it goes right through one of his teammates whose name was Dan. And so Dan's down.
Oh, oh man, I couldn't imagine. You're sitting there watching out nowhere, just this gigantic spear comes flying through out of a cave and right through your one of the people you're with named Dan. Oh my God, he's right near you. I couldn't imagine the fear that'd be going through my heart right now. Oh my God.
And so the whole team saw that. They didn't see who threw it, but they certainly saw the spear hit Dan. And so as they're shocked and just keeping their weapon up, wondering what's going to happen, out runs this, by Mr. K's account, a 12 to 15 foot tall man with a red beard and red hair down past his shoulders, comes charging out, howling like a war cry. He's got animal skins for clothes. He just looks super dirty, and he runs.
What? Hold on, so he's a 12, 15 foot high male, red haired beard. He's howling a war cry. He's got animal skin for clothes. Oh my God, I don't want to meet the what? What? Oh my God. That is not good. I don't like that. That's insane.
Runs over to Dan to pull the spear out and probably use it again, and the rest of the team at this point is broken out of their shock of what they're seeing, and they start engaging this giant. And the giant didn't really have a chance to fight back, and in 30 seconds the giant is down too. So Dan's down and the giant is down, and the whole team is like, what just happened? So after the dust had settled and all the shooting had stopped, they went to check on Dan, and Dan had passed away. And so they called back into higher headquarters, and they're trying to describe what happened. A very large, possibly human creature threw a projectile that hit Dan. And so they sent 2 helicopters out, one to retrieve Dan and the team, the other just to hoist up this very large human-like creature because they wanted to know what it was. And they struggled mightily to get the netting around this big creature. It ended up weighing over 1,100 pounds. It had 6 toes on each foot, and it had 6 fingers on each hand. They load it up, they string it onto this helo, and it takes off. And the team gets into the other helicopter, and they go back expecting to be debriefed as soon as they get back to base. The helicopter with the giant would fly to an airfield, and they would meet up with a crew of a C-130, which is another big military aircraft. The pilot of that craft would publicly say that he remembers seeing a 12 to 15 foot tall giant person with 6 fingers on each hand, 6 toes on each foot.
That's so... What? One, I did not expect that this would just end with the army just taking out this creature. That is kind of funny. But, wow. That is an insane, the fact that they got this creature and, like, 6 fingers. This is a creature that people probably should be glad it's taken out.
And he would say that's what he saw, even though it was later redacted and made top secret. Mr. K and his team, they flew back to the base to be debriefed, and so they had to provide an after-action report. It's something done in the military. You go out, you do any operation, you come back, and you write up what happened. And so Mr. K and his team decided to just be honest about what they saw. And so they described it again in detail. 6 fingers on each hand, 6 toes on each foot. It came out, it threw the spear, it hit Dan. It was this horrible situation. And once they submitted it, their leadership said, you got to rewrite that. Like, we're not going to accept that. So Mr. K said they ultimately rewrote it, and it just sounded like a typical engagement in the mountains with the enemy. And it was made top secret, and then they never saw it again.
The military knows that this creature exists because they took the creature. So what? And if you're gonna make it top secret where only you know about it, why does it matter what they send in as a report? Because the report is only gonna be seen by your people who know what happened. So why does it matter who sees it? Military is fucking weird.
And that was it. Mr. K said that he and the rest of his team also had to sign non-disclosure agreements to not ever talk about what they saw. And they never got any word about what actually happened. Like, what did they do with the body of the giant? And they just never got any clarity out of it. It was just basically made top secret, redacted, and they were told don't talk about it. So it would take until 2016 when Mr. K finally just said, you know what, screw it. I'm going to go public with what I saw because my friend died and they're acting like, this didn't happen, but it did happen. And so that's why we have this detailed report of this mission where they came in contact with the giant of Kandahar. I don't know how I feel about this story. I do think that if there was a place in the world that had the ability to mask or hide giants from being seen by the prying eyes of the human population, it would be Afghanistan. There were times when I was walking around out there that it felt like I was walking around on another planet. But either way, you do have one soldier who was killed by something out in the mountains of Kandahar, and his own teammates say this is what happened. And you have multiple corroborating witness testimony, but a lot of it's been made top secret and redacted, and so we don't really know what happened, or at least us commoners don't know what really happened. So I'd love to hear what you think happened, whether you think...
Alrighty, that's it for that reaction. I'd hope that's not actually what happened, because, that's a scary thought to think about, but if it is what happened, that's kind of cool, to be honest. The fact that the military's making it top secret is not shocking to me, but the fact they told them to rewrite that report, even though they knew they were going to make the report top secret, is really weird to me. But, military is fucking weird sometimes. Sorry for my language. Thank you all for watching this. Hope you all enjoyed it, and I'll see you all for the next one.